back to NostalgiaCast. I'm Jonny Craddock.
And I'm Darren Lundberg.
And today we're going to talk about a movie called Clueless, starring Alicia Silverstone and Paul Rudd, made back in 1995, directed by Amy Heckerling. And today we have a guest on the show. My wife, RJ Craddock, or Ruth, as she's known to me, is going to join us. And she picked this movie, and it's a Jane Austen adaptation from the book Emma. So we'll have fun talking about that, I think. But Darren, last episode we talked about Stakeout, and what do you think about that movie?
Well, that's a movie we thought was worth remembering. It's not a movie that's going to break any rules. It's not going to rewrite history or anything like that. It was just a good, solid buddy comedy. I thought that the chemistry between Estevez and Dreyfuss was like next level and doesn't get as much appreciation. And we talked about, it didn't go quite as deep as we wanted other things. Even Lethal Weapon that came out the same year kind of dove a little deeper into the buddy aspect in their relationship. This was just mostly surface level. Again, nothing wrong with that. Just a good, fun movie.
Yeah, it was a fun movie, and I do think the chemistry between Richard Dreyfuss and Estevez was really good. And I thought that it got even better in the second movie, another Stakeout. I think there were some issues with some of the filmmaking in the first one, but still worth remembering.
Yeah, they definitely had, right from the outset, there's one thing we didn't mention is I like the part where they're trying to capture a suspect in another Stakeout, and they're like, hey, do you want to yell freeze? Like, no, I think it's your turn. You go, no, you go ahead. So they're arguing like over the, I thought that was really, they've got that going on. So again, maybe not quite Mel Gibson, Danny Glover level, or even Ryan Gosling, Russell Crowe level, but just a good fun movie. So yeah, Stakeout, if you haven't seen it, go check it out. It's worth it just for that, the fun stuff alone.
Yeah. All right. So let's get into Clueless. But before we do that, let's go ahead and watch the trailer.
Okay.
So, okay. Like right now, for example, the Hay-tians need to come to America. But some people are all, what about the strain on our resources? And it's like, when I had this garden party for my father's birthday, right? People came that did not RSVP. So I was totally bugging. I had to haul ass to the kitchen, squish in extra place settings, and people were on mismatched chairs and all. But by the end of the day, it was the more the merrier. And so if the government could just get to the kitchen, rearrange some things, we could certainly party with the Hay-tians.
Wow. You guys talk like grown-ups.
Oh, well, this is a really good school.
Mr. Hall was way harsh. He gave me a C-.
Well, he gave me a C, which drags down my entire average.
Hello? There was a stop sign?
I totally paused. You try driving in platforms.
Oh, should I write them a note?
Ew! Get off of me!
As if. Cher's got attitude about high school boys.
It's a personal choice every woman has got to make for themselves.
Cher's saving herself for Luke Perry.
Cher, you're a virgin?
I mean, I'm not prude. I'm just highly selective. I mean, you see how picky I am about my shoes, and they only go on my feet.
Nice stems.
Thanks.
What the hell is that?
A dress.
Says who?
Calvin Klein.
What are you doing? Yo, you're getting on the freeway! Get out of the freeway!
You go, girl.
Are you okay?
I'm fine. Whatever. Did I miss something? Is big hair back?
Amber, my plastic surgeon doesn't want me doing any activity where balls fly at my nose.
Well, there goes your social life.
I'm gonna be a supermodel.
All right. So Clueless, 1995, directed by Amy Heckerling and starring Alicia Silverstone and Paul Rudd. I mean, there's others in there, but maybe not quite as noticeable as those two. So Ruth, we've had you on the show before. And by the way, thanks for coming back. You were with us for our Labyrinth episode, as well as our Swing Kids episode. And a lot of times we'll invite you on because you're a movie buff like us. And you also are my wife. And you have good insight on some of these movies that we talk about. So we want to get that female perspective. So we invited you again. So again, thanks for coming back. We appreciate it. But
thanks, Ruth, as always. Appreciate it.
Before we do anything else, tell us why you picked Clueless and what was behind your reason for picking it.
Well,
again, it's a very Johnny related reason. He always asks me what movie I'm most nostalgic about, and I'll always say the same movie, but he's like, well, but you have more experience with this or that. So like, he has this funny thing about where he'll ask me a question, but then he'll answer himself. Maybe that's a thing, or maybe it's a Johnny thing. I'm not sure. But one of these days I'll actually get on and do the movie I keep meaning to do. But this is another movie that he suggested, and I was like, yeah, I am pretty nostalgic about that, and it's very of my era. But yeah, Johnny kind of picked it. So that's why I picked it.
Well, I just kind of guide you in the right direction. That's all.
The direction that he wants you to go in. I think that's.
I don't think it's like my favorite movie. I think maybe.
Right. Well, that's really what we do with our guests. I think we give them like choices. Hey, pick 3, and that way we can choose the one that we most want to talk about. So I think that's it's a subconscious thing. Sorry about that, but yeah. So that's it. Just you pick Clueless because Johnny said you should pick Clueless.
Well, first of all, why are you nostalgic for it? What's behind that?
Well, it came out in 1995. So I was in at 11, 12 at the time, and this is during the time where, I'm a preteen. And I'm more aware of things and girl stuff and all that. And I started being more girly or thinking about it at that point anyways. And I just remember it being a very like vivacious movie and very colorful and very fun. And I think I also latched onto the fact that, hey, this is a Jane Austen adaptation. And I was very into Jane Austen at the time, very into Dickens and things like that. So, and this was also around the time a lot of old classic literature was being doing adaptations for modern day. So it was kind of part of that whole era. So I think that's why I was nostalgic about it.
Okay. Do you remember the first time you saw it?
I want to say I do, but I don't, quite honestly. I think it's, I have a horrible memory to begin with, and you know this. So I don't remember crap. Like I don't remember things I said yesterday. So, but I remember lines to movies. So that's how my memory works. But when I saw this, I'm fairly certain I did not see it in a movie theater. I think I saw it on DVD.
Okay. Well, my history with it is when I first saw the trailer, I was like against seeing it. I did not want to see it. It wasn't something that was like important to me. I didn't care about, California Valley Girls and that whole thing. I didn't know it was a, Emma, remake or whatever. And I wasn't a big Jane Austen reader. I never really read any of her books. And so it never really meant anything to me. And so I just kind of put it off, forgot about it. And then eventually I watched it. I don't know where. I think it was just maybe on DVD, like you say. I don't know. Somehow I watched it and I kind of was like, that was okay. Like I just kind of was like blasé about it. That was okay. And had the same reaction last night when we watched it again. Like here you were sitting next to me giggling at everything they were saying. And I was just kind of like, like everything they said kind of fell flat. However, I do agree it's kind of fun to look at. There are some things that they do that just kind of keeps your attention and keeps your eyes looking at things. The first thing I think obviously is Alicia Silverstone. I think she's just really cute in this movie and she's just like easy to look at. And so you want to keep watching her, and the way her mouth kind of moves and the way like her lips kind of curl up and she does these really kind of quirky but cute things. And so you're kind of like, that was kind of weird, but it keeps your attention. So I enjoy that part of it. Not just that she's cute, but like the whole thing is kind of fun. It's kind of just, I don't know. I can kind of get the sense that what they're going for the whole throwing these, modern day things in there, like, talking about 9 Inch Nails and the skater look that they had back then and all these different things in the Valley Girl talk and all that. And they throw these little, political jabs in there and things. And I understand what they're doing there. But those kind of things just don't mean anything to me, so I still can say I appreciate what they're doing, but it's just still kind of a movie that's lost on me. But anyway, Darren, what's your history with it? When did you first experience it?
Well, like both of you, I did not see this in the theater. I think my whole summer, and Johnny, you'll attest to this, was Batman Forever in '95. That was like my everything, even though there are much better movies that came out. I think that it's weird that most of our movies are just built around times that Batman movies were released. Anyway, so I think I was like you. It's like you see the way they advertised it, I think they advertised it in the commercials and things like that as a teen comedy. Like most teen comedies that you watch, they're just about teens. They're not very smart, just them indulging in behavior that, like, I guess is amusing when you're more an adult or when you're a teenager and you can kind of like identify with it. But, you know, I knew the name Amy Heckerling. I knew her from Look Who's Talking. I especially knew her from Fast Times at Ridgemont High. And so it wasn't a movie that I discounted. It just looked like every other teen comedy. And again, when the movie starts, that's what you're thinking. And Cher even calls that out. You know, it's all these quick cuts and shots of their legs and their dresses and them shopping and things like that. And it's just really quick. And it is shot like a Noxzema commercial. So what I like about the movie is that it's not quite on Fast Times at Ridgemont High level, but it is clever and it is smart because there's something else going on underneath the sheen of the movie. I don't know if that makes any sense. It's not just a teen comedy. It is making a comment on life at the time. Again, it's based on Emma, the Jane Austen novel. And so there is a bit more insightful comedy and character work going on. But so on the surface, it does seem like a very dumb sex comedy kind of thing. But what I like about it is underneath it has another level of subtlety and another level of smartness that I really enjoy. But yeah, again, wasn't my cup of tea when I saw the ads for it. So of course I'm not going to run out and see it and be in a theater full of giggling girls. It's not really my thing. But when I caught it later on video, I did end up liking it and thought, oh, that was actually really good. That was better than Batman Forever, which is weird because a lot of movies that we saw that summer, like Batman Forever is like one of the least stand-up movies out of that bunch, I think.
That's weird to hear you say that because I know how much you liked it during the time we were seeing that all summer long. Anyway, you mentioned Amy Heckerling, and you mentioned a couple movies that she directed, but she also directed Johnny Dangerously, which we've talked about before on the show because we liked Michael Keaton in it. And then she also did National Lampoon's European Vacation, if for anybody who likes those vacation movies. And then she also directed Loser. I always kind of get, I don't know why this happens, but I get the movie Loser and the movie Pecker kind of mixed up. I don't know why, but I don't know why that is. But anyway, not really great movies. But as far as director goes, I don't really see anything special about her. I mean, I was never a huge fan of Fast Times, and I never liked the Spicoli character. I always thought he was an idiot. And so I have a hard time. I don't mind idiot characters, but for some reason, I don't like Sean Penn playing an idiot. I just don't like Sean Penn. So that's another problem I have. So I wasn't a Fast Times fan. And Look Who's Talking. I guess they were good at the time because it was, you know, the whole baby thing and all that stuff. But if I was to watch those again, I probably would not like those movies. But if I had to pick a favorite of Amy Heckerling, I would say Clueless is probably the best thing she's ever done.
Ruth, what do you think? What about her movies?
Well, when Jonny pointed out that she did Fast Time at Ridgemont High, I was like, really? And the other things that he mentioned, I was like, yeah, I wouldn't have at all suspected that she made those other movies. I do find it interesting that you were saying that Clueless isn't on the same par as Fast Time at Ridgemont High, because as far as I'm concerned, that's one of the stupidest movies ever. But again, that might be because I also despise Sean Penn. So maybe it's just partially because I hate his character in that movie and I hate that movie. So yeah, but
that is something that we have in common, our distaste for Sean Penn. So.
Yeah, I think with me, I don't particularly like Sean Penn. I think he's an idiot. But I think disassociating him, I didn't know who the Sean Penn that I didn't like. I didn't know that was the Sean Penn of Fast Times at Ridgemont High. I guess I'll be the dissenter. I actually think that Fast Times at Ridgemont High, and again, it might have to do with the Cameron Crowe screenplay, because he's very like Almost Famous that he wrote. He's very insightful, and he takes a lot of stuff from his personal life and instills it in his screenplays. And so I just think that it's a more biting, it's raunchier, obviously, but it's a more biting and smarter comedy because it says more. I think Clueless is more, and this might be word, it's more surface level, but even though for me, it's more surface level, but it still is a lot of fun, and it's very smart. And I know you say that Heckerling, again, she's not like I think she captures the teen. Just, we talked about it in comedy before. She's able to place her camera in a place, like you talked about, Jonny, with Alicia Silverstone. You get, like, she is cute. You get that her face, and you do like her, and the way that it shoots her. And again, that might have to do with Bill Pope's cinematography on that. But I think Heckerling knows how to shoot teenagers to make them likable or make them approachable or more empathetic. And there is a shot that I'll always remember in Fast Times at Ridgemont High. It's when the Stacy character, the Jennifer Jason Leigh, she has sex for the first time. It's in a dugout, and when they start the act, the camera I remember it pulling back, or didn't, like, not movement pulling back, but all of a sudden it cuts to a shot that's like way back. And so you're disassociated from what's going on. So it doesn't seem like a very intimate act, which it's not in the movie, because she's the character talks later about how the sex hurt. So it's not really.
Yeah, I saw a documentary with her talking about this, and that was the reason behind that. She wanted you to feel like you were trying to, like, when someone gets raped or molested, they usually kind of like focus on something and like take themselves out of what's happening to them. They kind of like dissociate themselves. And that's kind of what was happening in that scene, is even though she planned this, like, it wasn't what she envisioned in her mind. It wasn't the fantasy she thought it was going to be. And so you see her like disassociating and staring at the top of the dugout and that kind of thing. And so that's why the shot is what it's doing. So I understand the reason behind doing that. I still just think it's a kind of I don't know, boring looking movie all around.
Yeah, and I know what you're saying. She's, like I said, she's not the fanciest director, but just that one shot, the fact that was in there, and the fact that she's able to make the characters in this one seem attractive and likable, I think that shouldn't be dismissed. But again, like talking about her not being fancy, that one shot that I mentioned, since it stands out, that earns her more points for me, I guess, anyway. But again, there's, she hasn't been directed a lot of stuff. I know she directed like an episode of The Office and directed some TV stuff, but Fast Times, Look Who's Talking, I think, and this one were her, which that's not bad. If you were to have like mention those names and find it's the same director, that's impressive, I suppose.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about Alicia Silverstone a little bit. When I first saw her on TV, it was in like a Pizza Hut commercial, I think, or some kind of commercial. And I remember kind of having a crush on her and going, oh, she's cute. You know what I mean? It was kind of like, oh, wow, who's that? And then she started getting a career. And it was funny because I don't know which one came out. Well, I think the crush came after Clueless, right? And
they came before. They came before because
okay.
Heckerling, I think Heckerling saw her in the Aerosmith videos, Crazy, and what was the other one?
Yeah, Crazy and Amazing.
Amazing. Okay. She saw her in that and thought, she's cute. I'd like to have her in the movie. And then one of her producers were like, oh, there's this. No. I think you should go with this actress that I saw in a movie called The Crush. And it turns out that they both were talking about the same actress.
Yeah,
so they thought that was.
It's also funny that she's in The Crush with Carrie Elways, because we talked about, The Princess Bride recently. And that was, one that Carrie Elways did where he played a different character, played like a villain almost. Or not a villain, sorry, but she was the villain. Sorry, she was the villain.
Yeah. Odd that we didn't mention that one. I wonder why. Maybe because it sucks.
No, but I thought she was good in The Crush, actually.
Yeah.
But I thought she was good in this one too. Ruth, let us know what you think about Alicia Silverstone and where you first saw her and all that good stuff.
I think the first place I saw her was the Aerosmith. Yeah, the Aerosmith videos. I distinctly remember that being where I saw her first. And then I think that's just it. I don't think I ever saw The Crush, or if I did, I completely blacked it out. But that's where I first saw her, was those movies, and then Clueless.
Well, what about what's the one with Brendan Fraser that she's in?
Oh, Blast from the Past?
Yeah.
Way later.
Yeah, but you like her in that one though, right?
I do like her, like, overall as an actress. She's one of those people that she just has a pleasant feel or aura about her. She just, I don't know. She's one of those people. She's pretty, but she's also like not so insanely pretty that you hate her for being. You're like, oh, it's too beautiful. But she has kind of almost a girl next door, but a little prettier feel about her. But she also has kind of a lightness and a cuteness about her. And I don't know, she has an energy. So I've enjoyed just about everything she's ever done for the most part, because she brings a certain like lovable energy to it.
As far as the character Cher goes, how does she compare to the character Emma in the Jane Austen book? Because I haven't read the book, I don't know much about it. And I've seen the Emma movie with Gwyneth Paltrow, but it's been a long time. So let us know how they compare.
Well, it's been a while since I read Emma. I did literally just read Pride and Prejudice for my own podcast, because I do a podcast now with my best friend.
Yeah, plug that.
That too. Anyways, but Emma, it's been a while since I've read Emma. but I was recently reading an article that was comparing the Clueless and Emma, which I didn't realize had actually, the Gwyneth Paltrow and Emma had come out after Clueless. I think I completely spaced it and didn't realize that they were that close together. But in the article I was reading, they were arguing that Gwyneth Paltrow's version of it is just so much more just a brat. And, you know, that she totally missed the lighthearted, sort of lovable personality of Emma. Like Emma does silly things, but with good intentions. So she's not trying to be a bad person by meddling in this girl's life. She's trying to help this girl be a better person. But in itself, the fact that she had the audacity to think that it's her job to make someone else a better person is a bit, you know, messed up. But she means well. Whereas I would disagree. I think as far as the book goes, from what I remember, she feels pretty spot on. Like she's pretty close to the same character. There's a sense of, I think maybe Alicia Silverstone's version, Cher, is maybe less snobby, if that makes any sense, despite the fact that she's a valley girl. There's I don't know, there's more of a lightheartedness to her in general. But I think they're pretty close.
Okay.
Yeah.
Darren, have you read Emma?
I think I read it in high school. I remember it being a perfectly charming book. I'm more familiar with Sense and Sensibility because when that movie came out, just the fact that Emma Thompson was cast as a much older version of Eleanor than what was in the book, that interested me. And so I decided to read the book based off of that movie. And I thought that, anyway, it's off topic, but I thought the adaptation of that one was fantastic. But yeah, it's I don't remember it specifically. I know it well enough that when I watched it this time, again, Clueless, I haven't seen it in. I know I bought a copy, obviously, because we found it in a $5 bin. I was like, yeah, Clueless. That's definitely something that I want to have in the collection. Show it to my daughter, and my wife likes it a lot. But it's been maybe 10 years since I've seen it. And when I was watching it this time, I was like, oh, that happens in Emma. So I was more remembering it from the book, even though I don't remember. I don't know if that makes any sense, but I just remember that the book is very just lighthearted and breezy, and it's a good literate work. And so, you know, that's a good source material to kind of take a teen comedy from, which is, I think, Heckerling's point. She didn't just want to do another stupid teen comedy. And so just being able to take inspiration from this classic book, I think that did help her a lot. So the movie the plotting seems pretty elegant in a way. I would say that the plotting of Clueless is episodic, but in a way that each episode or each chapter it improves Cher's outlook on life and how she looks at things. So that's and I think the storyline is owed something to Jane Austen. Ruth, how big of a Jane Austen or a Janeite are you?
Well, I wouldn't know what to call it, so I can't say that I'm a huge Jane Austen or Janeite or whatever it's supposed to be. I am a big fan. I have read everything. I think I don't own nearly. Apparently, there's a lot more adaptations of her books, including Pride and Prejudice, which I just found out the other night with my friend. Apparently, there's like billions of them, but I only own like 2. But I do enjoy her work. I will say that I'm more of a Bronte fan, the Bronte sisters. I prefer their work more to Austen because they are darker and grittier, and I do like dark, gritty things. And Austen always kind of ends with a wedding, and she ends with really lighthearted, and there's bad things that happen, but it ends on a happy note. Whereas Brontes are very dark and gritty, and a lot of bad crap happens, and they're slightly morbid. And I'm weird. I like dark, and I like morbid. Maybe just seems more realistic to me than happy endings. But
well, what is it particularly about that? That makes sense. But what is it particularly about Jane Austen? What do you think makes her such an indelible author, a classic author?
I think maybe she has a way of seeing both the good and the bad in her characters and being able to work those into her story in a way that's very relatable, no matter when you read it. Like when you think about the characters and the stories, if you want to be like on the surface and just think about that they're just period pieces and it's just that era and not see anything more, then you're going to miss a lot of the point. A lot of things that happen with the characters and the relationships are very relatable today, although a lot of the things in society are very different. Her characters are relatable because they have a lot of flaws, and a lot of times their strengths are also flaws. And I think that's part of what makes her so great is she writes really interesting characters, amazing dialogue, and everybody has a very distinct sense of personality. They have their own voice. When they're speaking, you can tell who's talking. Even if you didn't have like the little things in the book telling you who's saying what, you would know just by how they're saying it. Because, and I find that's, as a writer myself, I find that is rather difficult to do. To have not just to develop a character, but to develop a style on how they say things and how they do things so that they're so distinctive that you just, they're like real people.
Yeah, I like what you say about how it like they're relatable because people are people, right? I mean, these books are written in 1800s, but a lot of the personalities, a lot of the actions, people are, you know, they still do that stuff today. They're going to be doing this stuff 100 years from now. So it is very relatable. And that was one of my notes. It's like, it's funny how the Jane Austen 1800s like way of life can be ported over so well to 1995. You know, just the outfits change and the language changes. But yeah, I like that. But yeah.
I do like that they were able to adapt that book into a modern day movie. It was kind of a thing back in the 90s where they would take these, classic books and some Shakespeare plays and things and then like adapt it into a book or into a movie. You had 10 Things I Hate About You, which was Tammy the Shrew. And then you had the movie O, which was Othello. And then this one,
She's All That. She's All That.
Right. So it was something that they were it was a trend back then. So it is kind of fun to see them do that.
Yeah.
Wait a second. She's All That. What's that supposed to be an adaptation of? I've never heard that before.
She's All That. That was the one that, hold on.
Twelfth Night? Is that 12th Night?
Yeah, I think so. That was the one that had, what was her name? She's All That. No, is it She's All That?
No, Rachel Lee Cook.
Rachel Lee Cook. Is that based on? Maybe I'm getting that wrong. I don't even know. Let's see.
I'm not as familiar with 12th Night.
Oh, no. Never mind. She's All That was based on My Fair Lady or Pygmalion.
Okay.
Okay.
It seems more like, My Fair Lady, I can see that. But
yeah, there was a teen comedy. Let me see. What was the one I'm thinking? Amanda Bynes. What was that one that was based on?
He's the Man. That one's definitely
The Man. That's the 12th Night one.
Yeah.
Okay. That's the one we're thinking of. Sorry, I missed that up. Obviously I'm not very very attuned to the teen comedies
They're
of the
very
90s.
similar names. So
Yeah. It's an adaptation. It's still kind of the same wheelhouse, but yeah.
Okay.
Well, let's briefly discuss Paul Rudd because like we mentioned before, he doesn't age. He still looks the exact same as he did back then. I remember liking his character when I did first finally see it. That I liked him the best while I was watching it. I also kind of liked Breckin Meyer's character, Travis. Even though I wasn't a skater, I wasn't really in that crowd and that kind of thing. I liked his character. Even though it was very reminiscent of Spicoli, I still kind of liked his character. Maybe because it wasn't Sean Penn. But anyway, what do you guys think of Paul Rudd? How do you do in this movie?
Ruth?
Well, I think it's very classic. Paul Rudd's just adorable and cute. I think what sort of you see throughout his career, like he gets away with just being adorable in general, and that he's just cute, and his livery is cute, and just like the way he does things. And I don't know if I say he's a great actor, but he's adorable, and he does adorable so well that I will watch anything he does and probably love it. Like, quite honestly, he is my favorite Marvel superhero because I love Paul Rudd. So he makes Ant-Man amazing, even though, he's not like a top tier Marvel superhero. Not that I'm a Marvel fan per se, but as far as Marvel goes, it's Ant-Man just because of the movies. I didn't care about Ant-Man until they made Paul Rudd Ant-Man, and then suddenly he's like, oh, I think I'm in love with Ant-Man now.
Yeah.
But I think he's just really likable and lovable, and I think he has such a strong presence of likability that I think it's really smart to put him against Alicia Silverstone. They both have a likability, and I think it just, despite the awkward, weird situation, the fact that they're stepbrother and he's actually a lot older than her, and this is statutory rape, if you think about it in that way, because she's 16 and he's like at the least 18. It's still likable. I mean, we didn't think about that in 1995. I don't think in the same way that we do now. Because I don't remember once really thinking about, oh yeah, he's he could be in his 20s, and this is really wrong and messed up. I think it's because they're so likable as characters and as actors, and they bring a great chemistry that you kind of, you're like, oh, well, whatever. It's Paul Rudd. It's fine. It's okay.
I have to point this out as we were watching it, the way that he makes the sandwich in the kitchen when they're kind of having that banter back and forth about Ty, whatever, in the next room. And he pulls out the sandwich meat and he pulls the bread out and he slaps the meat, in your face. Then he like pops it on the bread and then he puts mayo on top of the meat. I don't know anybody who does that. Most people I know would put mayo on the bread first. But the way he did it, I was like, why is he doing it that way?
He's an intellectual, right?
More people make the sandwiches, Johnny. You wouldn't know.
Yeah, but if you didn't notice that, look for it. It's pretty funny to watch him make a sandwich backwards.
Well, what was that, Ruth? Sorry.
I love that he brought that up because Johnny loves finding mistakes of movies. It's his favorite thing.
Yeah.
Like he thinks he loves it more than the actual movie. If he can spot a problem or a mistake or something weird, he's like, woohoo!
Well, the business of watching actors is strange because it's like, well, what are you trying to do to make it look realistic?
Well, I understand the business. You have to have business in a scene, and it works for the scene. I liked what they were doing. But if you go back and watch it when you're editing the movie, you're going to go, why did he pick the meat up? And then, why did he put the... Anyway, I think those kind of things you would catch and you would say, let's do that again. Let's do it right this time.
Please, Paul, make a sandwich like a normal human being.
I know.
Well, my thoughts on Paul Rudd. First of all, Ruth, I like what you said about that's something that doesn't occur. Like I tried to find what his age was at the time. The closest I could come is that Stacey Dash. She was 29 at the time that they made this, 29 years old. And she pulls out being a teenager, but it also says that she's 2 years older than Paul Rudd. So by math, that means that he was 27 when he made this movie. But then also his face looks like he's 19. So I hate that guy, just the way that he looks like he's 10, 20 years younger than he actually is. But you're talking about, Ruth, you said about how the age thing, I think we're just today, again, the attitudes change and more's change. It's like Licorice Pizza with the Alana Haim and the Cooper Hoffman characters, how their age is so different, and people are picking up on that and finding it just gross, and they're hard to connect with that movie because of that. I think we're just more attuned to it. But the other thing with Paul Rudd, other than the two things I just mentioned, is like you, Johnny, the first time I watched the movie, he was the one character that I identified with because he was the one that was kind of standing outside of it. And he's, when he dances with Tay, because she's all by herself, and that's what makes him charming. It's not just the character doing, and it's fact that, well, that seems like something Paul Rudd would do, like in real life, just making her feel like she's seen. But so yeah, that's why I identified with him, because all this girly teenage wardrobe altering, like stuff like that I didn't really identify with that stuff as much as him kind of standing outside. And then watching the movie this time, I really identified with the Dan Hedaya character. So it just depends, on I guess maybe your age in life or how you see it or stuff like that. But yeah, Paul Rudd, I think what happened was he was about ready to quit acting when this happened, and this role gave him like the push to keep going and kind of gave him the drive to become an actor. And so we do have Clueless to thank for that.
That's good, because now we have Anchorman, and he's like one of my favorite things about Anchorman. So
right.
What else? Darren, what was the thing you wanted to mention? You were going to bring up something. I forgot what it was.
Well, like Ruth, we talked about, we had you on for Labyrinth. And the reason we did that is Johnny and I are not Labyrinth fans. We had a lot of people, a lot of our fans, like our two fans back then, were say Labyrinth, And so we thought, well, let's do Labyrinth, but we didn't want it to just be a hate fest. So that's why we brought you on, because of, the Brian Froud connection and stuff. We wanted to have you on to chat about that. So that helped us kind of see that movie in a different light, even though at the end of the conversation that we had, Labyrinth, I don't think Johnny and I were any bigger fans of the movie. We still disliked it, but we at least appreciated what was happening, what the point was. So bringing you on for Clueless, it was another thing where, again, I like Clueless. I like it quite a bit. It's not maybe in my wheelhouse because it doesn't speak to me personally, because I'm not a teenage girl in Beverly Hills, but we wanted to have that perspective. And so again, I reached out on Twitter because this movie has impacted a lot of people. Johnny and I, we can look at this and go, oh, it's just kind of like a frivolous teen comedy, but I can't ignore the fact that it did have an impact on people when they watched it. And so I did reach out to Twitter, and I wanted to read a couple things, if that's okay. But a friend of mine who's become like like an iconic critic. Her name is Courtney Howard. She's like really, it's been fun like watching her on Twitter and build a fan base and being able to see her have quotes and like, you know, Jungle Book, how it has the splash quotes, stuff like that from her reviews. And so I basically reached out and she responded. I love having conversations with her. Again, these people that you think are so above your stature that I'm able to have conversations with her. We even had a conversation about how to lose a guy in 10 days. And she brought up that movie, which I hate. I despise that movie, but she brought up that the movie was actually based on a book, which I didn't know. And then the book is all stick figures. And so she like tweeted pictures of it for me. And I was like, I have to buy this book. And so I ended up buying the book from eBay, and it's really, really funny. It has nothing to do with, you know, it's about how like poisoning your boyfriend just so you can lose. Anyway, it's a real funny book. I recommend that. But what she did is for the anniversary, I think it was maybe the 25th anniversary, she tweeted a bunch of trivia bits. And so, Jonny, we haven't done a trivia thing in a long time. Are we, you know, I think in our first 2 episodes, we sat and we were like, well, what are some trivia things? And let's share some trivia. And we haven't done that.
Yeah.
Today. I've got 10 things here that she wanted me that she gave the okay to share. She shared this tweet thread, and I was like, would you mind? This is awesome. Would you mind if I shared this in our conversation? She said, go for it. So just a few things that I'm not sure people are aware of is number one, Clueless, which was originally a Fox TV pilot called No Worries. And then it was changed into a different draft called I Was a Teenager, which I thought is kind of a clever title for that. Nothing happened with that screenplay. Heckerling switched agents and it changed to a feature winding up at Paramount after an intense studio bidding war. I think, yeah, that was her next thing. According to, it's funny because you watch the behind the scenes things on the DVD, and Twink Kaplan, her name, she was a producer. She also plays, what's the teacher's name that gets involved with Wallace Shawn?
Oh, Mrs. Geist?
Mrs. Geist. Okay. She actually plays Mrs. Geist. So it's weird in the behind the scenes footage, seeing them like rehearsing and getting shots and seeing Mrs. Geist in the background. It's like, Mrs. Geist, what are you doing in the background? Get out of here. Like, why did they let him hang on the set? But it turns out she was just a producer. But when they were shopping the script around, she says that the Kaplan said that the guys at 20th Century Fox didn't get it. The men didn't get it. They wanted Amy to rewrite the script so there wouldn't be so many women. Which again, it's weird wanting to write a screenplay from a different, your point of view, and that's not really the point of it. I like this fact. Alicia Silverstone generally didn't know how to pronounce Haitians. What is she? She says Hay-tians in the movie. And Heckerling thought this was a riot and told the crew not to correct her because she thought that was a very Cher thing to say. I thought that was cute. Silverstone also has 63 costume changes. I thought that was great. The red dress she wears at the Valley Party was a genuine Azadine Alalia. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. And that iconic yellow plaid outfit, which for some reason Dion is able to match in like a black plaid outfit. It's funny that they kind of matched suits. But that yellow plaid outfit was an original Jean-Paul Gaultier. And then costume designer Mona May said that it was one of the few pieces that they splurged on. I think they only had maybe a $20,000 or $200,000 budget for the costumes, and so they're actually able to get a Gaultier costume in there. This makes sense. It says that Paul Rudd wore his own Amnesty International T-shirt as Josh. It says they own 2 of them, so they got to wear their own wardrobe, I guess, when they showed up. Tay, Sharon Dion's breadstick penis talk was supposed to take place in a California pizza kitchen, but once the execs read that, they got really uncomfortable, so they shot it at a place called Crocodile Cake in Burbank. I don't think it's operating anymore. 7th is Cher's hair clip in Clueless, and this is where I got it from. Worn on her date with Christian. It's the one where just in her hair anyway. But Amanda Bynes also sported that, and She's the Man. The 2 films share the same lead hairstylist, Nina Paskowitz. Bynes freaked out when Paskowitz told her she could wear it. So I guess that's talking about Marvel movies, I guess that's a connected universe, a shared universe thing. Amy Heckerling, she actually plays Miss Geist's maid of honor during the wedding scene.
I did know that, and I did point that out to Ruth when I saw it. So you
don't see her from the front, though, right? You just kind of
you just see the back of her head, yeah.
Because like Heckerling she's very self-deprecating. I know that when she was showing the script to Bill Pope was like trying to give her compliments how good the script was, and she kept like, no, it's not that great. So she's very deprecating that way. And then the kick that I got is the guy that plays the priest is Carl Gottlieb, who co-wrote Jaws, the screenplay. Okay. So I thought that was funny. Wallace Shawn, we have to mention Wallace Shawn. He actually used to teach drama in Latin in real life. He was a teacher. He plays Mr. Hall.
Mhm.
And then Heckerling had a real Mr. Hall that was one of her teachers. And this guy, Herb Hall, he cameos as the principal that shows up at the PE place and introduces Tay to everybody. Am I pronouncing that right? Is it Ty or is it Tay?
Hi, yeah.
Hi.
Hi.
Okay. Sorry, no disrespect to.
Adorable. We didn't want to correct you. It was a very daring thing.
Very daring thing to say. I got you. All right, so Ty, we'll get it from now on. And then the last thing, Seth Green read for Travis, the Breckenmeyer character. Terrence Howard and Dave Chappelle were on the list to play Murray. Jerry Orbach was offered the role of Cher's dad, and Harvey Keitel was also considered, but he was too pricey. So I like all these behind the scenes things. It's always fun to see how these movies that become so iconic started out with people having zero faith in it. What did you guys think about that?
Yeah. Well, I remember thinking that it would never go anywhere. Like when I saw the trailer, I thought that's never going to hit it big. It's never going to find an audience. And it did. So a lot of times I'm wrong when I think those things. So, yeah.
Ruth, was this a movie that you thought from the very beginning that it was going to catch on, or it meant something to you personally?
Yeah, I connected with it right away. It's definitely left its mark, even to the point that I don't know if you're aware of this, but Izzy Azale, the rapper, she's a white female. I believe she's Australian. I could be wrong. Rapper. She actually is really into 90s stuff, and she did a music video. Fancy was pretty much an homage to Clueless, and she played the Cher kind of character, and yeah, it's a fun video if you get a chance to see it. But,
yeah, I saw a clip of that in one of the GIFs or something like that. And I was like, that's not Alicia Silverstone. Who's this person trying to pretend that she's Cher? Like all this stuff. But yeah, I liked, again, the special features. The thing that surprised me, and again, I want to thank Courtney Howard for allowing us to use those trivia bits. I really appreciate her just as a person and for her involvement here. Obviously, she loves the movie, so she wanted to have a little bit of a say. But what I noticed in the special features is, so you have a lot of the dialogue. I think I remember Entertainment Weekly releasing like a glossary of like what the words meant, which is one of the things that I like about the movie, because it has all these words like buggin and Audi, which I thought was Audi, like I'm Audi, like O-U-T-I, but it's actually Audi, like the car. I thought that was
right. Yeah.
As if, whatever. I thought that those words were copying stuff that was happening at the time, but I guess in the special features, it turned out that a lot of this dialogue seemed like it was invented for the movie, and people started using the dialogue after the movie, and that's where a lot of the stuff came from.
I don't know about that, because I remember hearing those terms during that time, so I don't know about that per se.
I don't know. I think that if they were used, it definitely became more prevalent after this movie. This movie definitely made as if a thing. I don't remember hearing anybody say it before that time, but whatever was definitely a thing. But as if, I can't say that I remember hearing it before Clueless.
Yeah, that's what I thought was interesting. Again, it's it's weird that the impact, if that's true, the impact that it had. I know the PE scene that we talked about, the girls all have their phones and their electronics kind of clipped to their clothes. And I was surprised to read that was a thing. Like they did that 5 years or about 10 years before Paris Hilton made that a popular thing, attaching your electronics to the outside of your clothes. So again, there's a lot of impact. The only other thing I wanted to mention, as far as, this movie means a lot to people. And I did have a few people that also tweeted at me about how, like, their memories or what they thought of the movie. But I've got a good friend. Her name is Rachel. She runs a great series of podcasts. Rachel at Rachel_reviews. She's got a bunch of different podcasts. She's got like a Hallmark podcast. She's got a Disney Defining Disney podcast. She has a Criterion podcast. So she's just very multitasking. She's very, again, a prolific kind of critic in her own right. And it's been fun watching her go. But I know she's been a big fan of Clueless. I know she's a big fan of Jane Austen. So I asked her specifically if there's anything she wanted to say. So she sent me a paragraph. She says, a lot of people see Jane Austen novels as only romances, when I think they're actually coming of age stories, where the only option for women at the time was to marry. This is especially true with Emma, as she is the most flawed of any of her heroines. She grows and changes and becomes a woman ready to be married at the end. With Clueless, we see a similar arc with Cher, shedding much of her superficial ways by the end as she learns to love Josh, Ty, and even characters like Travis and Christian more completely. So again, that's good coming from somebody that dives into Jane Austen, that she and I think she even did a Hallmark podcast where they talked about all the Emma adaptations that they did, including the Anna Taylor-Joy one that came out a couple of years ago. So again, thank you, Rachel, for that comment. At the Lady Wan, which she's commented before, she says, this is the first movie I remember watching at a sleepover. I loved it from first watching. I can never get enough. I consider it one of the top 10 teen movies of all time. From the fashion to the music to the one-liners, it's pure brilliance. So again, that's watching it at a sleepover. That's something that my wife said. Like, she watched it when they hung out with friends. It was Clueless, and it was Empire Records that they watched a lot as teen movies.
Wild Hearts Can't Be Broken.
Wild Hearts Can't Be Broken. So all these teen movies, these girls, that's the stuff that came out. But so that means something. At real_Alex Mack, again, a good friend on Twitter, she says, Clueless manages to have a script that's somehow trendy yet ageless. I remember watching it for the first time when I was younger and wanted to talk like them. And even as an adult, wish I could put my feelings to words as effectively as Cher does, or as Jane Austen does, I guess you should say. They are just so damn cool. I like what she says there about it's trendy yet ageless, because it was trying to spoof like the language and the attitudes and the fashion of the time. Do you guys think the movie works as a time capsule, or does it work? You know, you watch movies in the 80s and you see their costumes. Do you think that this movie is a time capsule piece, or does it actually work today and still look just as good?
Well, I actually think it tried too hard to do that. Like, it tried too hard to put all these in, you know, like the Mighty Mighty Boss Stone song, and they were in the movie, and they had the Rolling with the Homies Coolio song, and they kept throwing these modern things in there, and I kept just going, why are you doing that? Like, I know that's the time that it was made, but you don't have to constantly tell me, hey, it's 1995. Don't constantly tell me that. I know it's 1995. You know, you don't need to, keep reminding me. So in a way, it actually kind of bothered me. I was like, stop doing that. Stop telling me what's popular now. You know what I mean? Because if you want to transcend time, then you want to kind of be like,
avoid those things.
You want to do that. You want to kind of like be more vague.
Yeah, that's true. Ruth, you were having a grand old time. Jonny just talking there. What are your thoughts there?
I love when he hates things. I don't know what it is. There's something you're thinking about when Jonny goes off on a rant about stuff.
What were you going to say about the times capsule?
Yeah, what do you think?
I think in some ways it's more of a caricature, because kind of like what Jonny's saying, like there are some things that are very true. Like, one of my favorite parts is when she, goes off about how guys dressed at that time. And then she says these really sloppy guys. And I distinctly remember my brothers dressing like that. I remember how bad that looked. And unfortunately, that look kind of lingered for a long time, where you had like the very baggy boxers and the even baggier pants that were like on their knees, essentially. And they weren't even covering their butts. I remember being in school with these women going, how come no one's pantsed you yet? Like, you're asking for it.
I'm sure it happened quite a bit.
I'm really glad that they were able to improve on that belt technology from 1995 to now. I think that was the problem. Okay. And I do agree with that. It's like the parts that I really liked in this were the parts that weren't Mighty Mighty Boss Tones, or weren't attached to things like Gautier, obviously, like mentioning that kind of thing. And we can talk about those in a sec. But the last comment I want to read is from @KDL_Carter. Also, again, a lot of these people, I love these women, these fellow film nerds. Kind of, I love having these conversations on Twitter with these people. She says that when we went into lockdown in March 2020, the first thing I ordered was not toilet paper, but Clueless on Blu-ray. I feel like that speaks to a lot of what a funny, sweet, feel-good film it is. One that manages to be both very mid-90s, but also timeless. So and that reminds me, Courtney also wanted me to mention there's a book called As If by Jen Chaney, which was celebrating the 25th anniversary. That has a lot of the trivia there, where she got a lot of that stuff from, where you can find a lot of these interesting tidbits. But definitely that's a fun book. I've looked at some excerpts of it. But again, her buying that Blu-ray and talking about, like you said, Jonny, it's very mid-90s, but it's also timeless. That goes back to us talking about Jane Austen, like the story beats and the narrative through line is timeless. And so I think that's what comes through. Again, that's what came through for me on this time. There's the language, which is fun. And it was fun listening to my wife and my daughter. Like, my daughter hasn't seen it, but she's seen all the memes. She's seen all the TikToks that people use it. So it is very popular among people. So there are a number of times Elizabeth and I looked at her, I was like, have you seen this movie? And she's like, no, I got this from a TikTok. And so we're like, I still don't know what a TikTok is, but obviously it's something that's popular with the kids. but that is something that's very, very timeless. I wanted to have, like having Ruth on, I wanted to have a female perspective because there's only so much that Jonny and I can talk about this movie and its meanings to us. So that was the basic thing I wanted to talk about and the impact that it had. I just like that people still talk about it, and it is a movie that's indelible and, you know, memorable for Paul Rudd or Alicia Silverstone's first acting job, or, you know, it's memorable for a lot of things, I think.
Okay. So Ruth, why don't you go ahead and tell us what you think? Is this movie worth remembering, or is it worth a remake?
I think it's worth remembering. They could make it, but I don't know. I kind of feel like that era that she ends up that they made it was a great time for this kind of a story, especially doing it in Beverly Hills, doing it with those kind of people. I feel like that just a beautiful place to recreate the story, because in a lot of ways we don't live by the same standards or of society that they did in Jane Austen's time. But in like upper class rich high school, you suddenly can transplant the story into that situation, and suddenly it makes sense. It makes sense in that circle, that the small group of people would be all that concerned about what each other think, and that there would be that hierarchy, because in real life that you don't have that. But at that time particularly, I think that was quite brilliant. I feel like it came out at the right time to probably make the most impact. But as far as like somebody actually trying to remake Clueless as its thing, like itself, I don't think it would work as well in a modern setting as it did in 1995. And I feel like although Clueless isn't an adaptation of Emma, it has sort of transcended to its own thing. Like it's almost its own story now. Despite the fact that it gets its plot and its characters from something else, it's almost its own thing now. So where in that way, I feel like it's unremakeable. It's timeless.
All right. Darren, what do you think?
Yeah, definitely worth remembering. I know that speaking of teen comedies, we did Ferris Bueller's Day Off, and I don't like that movie. I don't think the main character is someone to look up to. I think he's an asshole. Like Ferris Bueller's an asshole. But how I came down on that movie was it has impacted people. So I'm not going to say it's worth a remake on that one, because like it worked for as many people as it needed to. So it does have a stake, even though I personally don't like it. That doesn't mean that it needs to be redone. I just think a couple of things that we didn't mention is obviously I think Fast Times at Ridgemont High is more biting and cynical movie. It looks down at the characters, and it has that. And with this movie, it's more of a birthday cake version of it. It's very smooth, because it doesn't. These characters in this movie, from Dion to Ty to Murray to Amber, the Elisa Donovan character. You talked about Travis Breckenmeyer. All these characters would be insufferable if we didn't see that they're sincere and they're sweet at heart. You know what I mean? The Travis character, he's hurt when Ty, Cher makes her like diss him or makes her ignore him. He's hurt by it, and you can tell that he's hurt. You can also tell that Ty knows that he's hurt and she wants to go to him, but she can't, because that's not what ties in with her being popular. Cher is very, very sincere. She's obviously caught up in the time. I thought that even their barbs, the part where Ty says to Cher, she goes, "Why am I listening to you? You're a virgin who can't drive." I wrote down that even their barbs seem like they got it from 90210. It seems like they heard it on 90210 and they thought that's smart. So if I say it, I'm going to be smart. So it doesn't seem like they even believe in their barbs or them being mean to each other. I know that they tried to make Amber the antagonist, but she doesn't really come off that way. She's just kind of an annoyance to Cher, and they're still friendly with each other. It's not like they ever get in a cat fight or anything like that. I just think that the characters are very sweet and well-meaning, and that's what makes this movie. It's not as hard-hitting, but it is very, very, very likable. It's a likable movie. Again, we talked about the stuff, the Mighty Mighty Boss Tone stuff, Jonny. Obviously, that dates it. But what the sincerest stuff, like how you see Cher talk with Josh from the very beginning, they're talking to each other in a different way than she talked with their friends. I think when she talks with their friends, a lot of it's very surface level. It doesn't really, but they're able to go at each other in a way that's still friendly, but kind of barbed, but you can tell that they like each other. She's after she calls the taxi driver or the taxi service when she gets mugged, he's the first person that he calls, and he's with his girlfriend. He doesn't hesitate to get right up and go pick her up and Driver. And then you have the scene where his girlfriend misquotes Hamlet, and Cher goes, no, it was that Polonius guy. So she's obviously got smarts, but I think she's tied up in a lot of the popularity stuff. And then, and then Dion and Murray too, they're at each other, but I don't think that they mean it. They're very literate with each other and kind, like Cher says. And like I said, when I identify with the Dan Hedaya character, when you watch these teen movies, the adults, and that's another thing that I don't like about Ferris Bueller, is the adults are treated like clueless idiots, to borrow the title of the movie. They're treated like dumb morons who are not as smart as their teenage offspring, right? Which is annoying. You see that in a lot of Disney cartoons or Disney shows, stuff like that. And that's something that I'm never, it's like, come on, adults, kids aren't always going to be smarter than their parents, right? I love that the adults in this, the Wallace Shawn character, when Travis gets up and he gives his acceptance speech for being tardy that number amount of times, the look on Wallace Shawn's face is priceless. He's like, but the thing is, he doesn't stop him. He doesn't point out that you're an idiot, I'm going to fail you. He doesn't come off as an old fogey or as a mean person, a mean type, because even he's sincere. I like that, even though, and I love the Mel, the dad, even though he's got this gruff exterior, he's a softie underneath. I cracked up. I noticed this time that 4 times during the movie, when he's trying to get people to come talk to me, he goes, Cher, get in here. He says that, get in here 4 times. And there's the part where Josh says, I'm going to go to the party. Is that okay? You don't need me here. And Mel goes, no, if you need to go, you go. And he has that smile on his face, that he knows why he's going to spend time with Cher. He knows there's something going on. I like when he brings Cher in. He's like, you can't, don't let anybody tell you that you're stupid. You're one of those beautiful and smartest people that I know. And you just have to show that. And that's, again, an instigator to make Cher become a better person. So even the adults, I love that, even though, again, Mel is the example I'll use. He's gruff and he's tough, but beneath, he's a softie. He knows what's going on, but he's letting the kids be the kids. He's even got that dad thing. I like when Ty's over and he's like, get out of my chair. She has to stand up. Or when Christian comes over and he's like, what's the matter with you, kid? You think that Sammy Davis died and left an opening in the Rat Pack for you? So he's, a lot of these really funny lines. Or when Cher comes in, the line that I laughed at this time was when she comes in, he's like, what the hell is that? A dress. It's like, who says? Calvin Klein. That's very, again, it's sincere. They're not mean-spirited people. They're just, and maybe that's the Beverly Hills thing, but I just like that, even though it's an adaptation of Jane Austen, with the whatevers and the outies and the buggins, it's still, Clueless still made an impact as itself, not just as a Jane Austen adaptation. And so I think it's great. That's great that it made that impact. I like it a lot. It obviously doesn't mean as much as it does to my wife or to Rachel or to Alex or Katie or Courtney, but it's still, I like that it means something to them. And I like that I can see all the seeds and all the, I guess, the clockwork going on. So sorry, that was a really long rant, but I didn't want to go without mentioning all that. I do think it's very, very memorable. It's very worth remembering.
Okay. Well, I will say that as well. I'll say it's worth remembering, but I was against seeing it when I first saw the trailer. I didn't really enjoy it the first time I watched it. It wasn't until actually before I watched it last night, like maybe 2 weeks ago, I caught the very end of it on something. I went past it. I started watching it, and I just kind of stayed on there, and I watched to the very end. I was kind of like, that was okay. Like, it was kind of like, I can see why people like that movie. You know what I mean? I get it. I understand why it's memorable, why people like it. It's just not for me. I don't relate to the affluent teenage, California Valley girl. I just don't. It doesn't mean anything to me. And even the Josh character, he's fine. And he's one person I didn't relate to. But I mean, everything else about it, it does seem surface level. I see what you're talking about when you see the different layers. I see all that, but it still doesn't really mean anything to me. But I will say, it's worth remembering because of Alicia Silverstone and the way she portrayed Cher. I still think she did a great job, and no one else could have played Cher the way she did.
Absolutely.
So, all right. Well, thanks, Ruth, for coming on. We appreciate you bringing this movie to us.
Well, let's let her plug some stuff. You've got a third novel that's about to come out, right?
You talked about your new podcast you have out. Tell us about that.
Yeah.
And where people can find you. Yeah.
Okay, so I started a podcast with my best friend, sort of copying you guys, since I do edit your YouTube videos, and I have a hard time watching them and not going, I could do this. I I've got lots of friends I can do this with, but I end up doing it with my best friend from junior high. We're still very close. We're a lot alike. We like a lot of the same things. We're both very opinionated, and we're both short. So we were the short girls. But yeah, we it's called Paperback Flicks. We do movies that were adapted from books, and we talk about the book, and then we talk about the adaptations and how well they transfer over, and what we liked about each medium. So yeah, we've only had one episode out. We have another episode about to drop. Our first one was Harry Potter, and our second one that's about to drop out is Pride and Prejudice. So somewhat ironic that we're doing this, another Jane Austen movie, like right afterwards. So yeah, we're on YouTube, we're on Libsyn, wherever you find podcasting things. But we're pretty new, so we don't have a lot of stuff. We're also doing an author interview. We want to support indie authors. We have an interview we're going to be doing next time with RK Lee, the writer of the Genesis series. And so that's our next thing we're doing. And I do have a third book coming out, hopefully very soon. That's the third
which
book.
I've read. I've read quite a bit of it. So yeah.
I was gonna ask, have you read it? 'Cause it is huge. It is quite big. It's the third book in the 13 Tribes of Cain series. And it is massive, but it's an urban fantasy, very loosely based off of some of the things that happened in my own life, but then we threw magic and more interesting things into it. So there you go. And yeah, so that's coming out. I did just release a children's book called What's So Pretty About Pink, to sort of chronicle my daughter's obsession with my least favorite color, but I'm respecting that this is who she is. I despise pink, but of course she loves it. So but I'm doing a series of children's books about colors and the great things about them, and with some fun facts and stuff like that. And it's all through rhymes and poetry, and I do the illustrations. So yeah,
lovely stuff. I haven't finished your third book. Again, you asked me to kind of look at it, but I think it's the best one that you've written so far. I think a lot of the language in there and the way that the sentences, that sounds weird, the way the language of the paragraphs in it is just very lyrical, and it's not that your first two books weren't good, but it's like an evolution step forward from what I've read. So
all right.
So that's good.
Okay, thanks, Ruth, for joining us. And Darren, what do you want to do for our outro?
Well, I think it'd be fun maybe doing either our top three or bottom three, or some kind of top three of like books that are kind of loose, or movies that are loosely adapted from books.
Okay.
We can do Shakespeare stuff or anything like that. I think it'd be fun, like Clueless, to see what, like you mentioned, the kind of like genre stuff or copy movies like this we're trying to do at the time, or what the 90s are doing. So that might be a fun topic.
All right, that sounds good. Thanks again, Ruth.
thanks for having me.
Again, you're a good luck charm. We have you on once every season, we like to call it. So again, that's just a good way to kind of let us know that we're still at it. We're still going strong. So again, good luck on your podcast, and good luck on the book. We always appreciate you coming on and sharing your insights.
All right, thank you so much.
May I please remind you that it does not say RSVP on the Statue of Liberty. Thank you very much.
Okay, we're back. So, Darren, there were a few things we didn't mention in the meet, and so go ahead and say what it was you wanted to say, and then I'll go ahead and say what I wanted to say.
Well, just a couple of things. Number one, I wanted to mention Brittany Murphy. I did say no disrespect to her. It's sad, like watching the movie. I remember pointing to her and turning to my daughter and saying she's dead, like she's no longer with us. And the thing that I think Heckerling went on record saying that she was pushed, Murphy was pushed to look skinny and not look as she called her a little rounder, is how Heckerling described her in for Thai. But yeah, you read a lot of that stuff in Hollywood today about how the actresses are pressured to look thin. I know Carrie Fisher pushed back on that when she was cast in Force Awakens. She didn't want to have to go on a regimen and lose all that weight. So there is this push. And I think that's where, the rumors, that's where it came from. She collapsed in her house. She supposedly died of pneumonia. Later, it came out that there was mold that was poisonous in her home because her husband later collapsed and died. So again, whether it was something to do with Hollywood pressures, whether it was mold, something as simple as that, it's kind of a shame because she's charming like everybody else in Clueless. She's very charming, and she could have gone some places. And I know she was in a few good movies where she got that charm across. I want to mention something else, but we'll lob the ball back to you. What was something you wanted to mention?
Yeah, the character Amber, the redhead, right?
Lisa Donovan, right?
Yeah. I had a hard time with that character throughout because I didn't know, like we talked about, if she was a friend or a foe. I kept thinking, well, is she their enemy or is she, what's going on here? Why do they keep like going back and forth? And so we talked about it, but not to the point where I was satisfied because I didn't think it made any sense. I was like, is she a friend or not? Let me know. Who's this person? Is she their enemy? What's going on here? And they never really, come out and say that.
And her wardrobe just kept getting more and more inexplicable.
Yeah. And I did not like the Pippi Longstocking braids that she had going on either at one point. So
yeah, and I think she was looked like Cindy Lou Who when they were posing for the photo or whatever. Yeah. That was funny. The thing we mentioned briefly, Bill Pope. I was surprised, like when you read the credits and his name came up. I think you mentioned this. He was like, Bill Pope? Bill Pope did a cinematography for this. And again, he's big with us because we know him from Darkman. We know him from Army of Darkness. We know him from Spider-Man 2. He did the cinematography the same year he did Team America.
Yep, World Police. Yep.
Right, he did that one. So, and then again, the Matrix movies, he's known for doing those. Like again, groundbreaking cinematography. Yeah. So Scott Pilgrim just mentioned another few. Men in Black 3. Just recently, he did Alita Battle Angel. He did Shang-Chi. He's going to do the, like we talked about, the next Ant-Man. So working with Paul Rudd again. So again, very, very good cinematographer. And I think Ruth mentioned it was just very colorful and very bouncy. And he got that. You don't want to have Matrix type cinematography. I mentioned, this movie does keep your attention. It does have stuff to look at. So you do kind of stay focused, even though I might not like it as much as everybody else does. I still found myself, engaged. So yeah, absolutely. So Bill Pope, I wanted to mention. Was there anything else you wanted to mention?
No, that was it.
Okay. Just the weird costume changes for.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we talked about doing like a top 3, book adaptation. I know we talked about how during that time in the 90s, a lot of these movies were adapted from books, and a lot of them were like Shakespeare remakes. They did like, they did 10 Things I Hate About You and She's All That, right? Mm-hmm. Or She's the Man. Is that the one? She's the Man.
She's All That was Pygmalion.
Yeah. So anyway, we thought we'd do like our top 3 book adaptations, and I'll go ahead and go first. And this is going to be because, we have history together. I'm going to pick Hamlet, Kenneth Branagh's Hamlet. It is an adaptation from Shakespeare's play Hamlet. And I picked it because they actually did it word for word. They didn't cut anything out. So it's a 4-hour-long movie. It's exactly what you read in the play. It's the play on screen. And so it's long. And anyway, that's why I picked it. I think it's great. It's beautiful. It's really well directed. Everybody's really good as far as the acting goes. But it's just long. It's hard to get through because it's so long. But if you have the time and you really want to watch some great acting and some great cinematography and some great directing by Kenneth Branagh, I think this is a good movie to watch.
Yeah, what's great about it is just how they, like you said, you get the Polonius character, you get the Fortinbras, you get all this stuff. And it's like illuminating because it's like, I didn't get this from any other version. So you see all the political.
Because they have to cut things out. They can't keep everything in. So the fact that Kenneth Branagh left everything in just kind of attests to, what he was trying to do. And I think it's great.
Yeah.
Anyway, quick little side note. I know we kind of got into a little bit of tiff over this movie when we were in high school, and we were trying to decide what to watch. And I think everyone wanted to watch The Mask of Zorro. And I just did not want to watch it again. Like we had seen it maybe 3 or 4 times. I remember watching it and going, okay, I've seen that one.
It's probably my 14th time by then.
I kept saying, let's just watch Hamlet because, Jason hasn't seen it or Mike hasn't seen it. And so we watched the first before the intermission, was like the first 3 acts, I think. And it took like 3 hours or 2.5 hours. And by the time we were all done, we were all just kind of like depressed. Like, I remember you guys got really mad at me for making everybody want to sit and watch Hamlet. So anyway, I apologize to you guys for making you watch Hamlet when we didn't want to, but I didn't want to watch Mask of Zorro.
Right. 4 hours. Yeah, you're right. It's long, but I think it's a very worthwhile adaptation. It's probably my favorite adaptation of that play.
Yeah.
So yeah, and it makes the sword fight at the end with all the elaborating on the characters, makes the sword fight seem even more lame, I guess you could say. It's just like a kind of an action climax that it's not worthy of all the drama that went on before it.
Yeah. Yep.
So the first one that I want to mention, again, you mentioned Hamlet. We're talking about 90s movies we didn't know adaptations. I'm going to talk about The Lion King, which again was adapted from Hamlet. Basically, it's got the same story. It's got the king who's usurped by the uncle, and then the son that finds out that the uncle's behind it. And maybe it's like adapting maybe the first act of it, or first couple of acts. But then Lion King also has that. The only part that loses me at the end, it's so powerful, or Disney cartoon, is when they're having that paw fight, when they're punching each other. And it's the same thing as the sword fight. It's like the drama that went on before this, it deserves more than what we're getting. And so I think that's a lot of the Hamlet stuff that goes on. It's hard to kind of redo that. But again, Lion King is not something, when you're a kid and you're watching it, you don't know that that's Shakespeare. It's not something, and even now,
you don't think about that, right?
Yeah, it's kind of loosely based. So again, Lion King, very powerful with a weak ending, just like the play. So that's my first pick.
Cool. My number 2 is going to be American Psycho, and that's only because I read the book recently, and I saw the movie before I read the book. Yeah, and I remember the movie I was kind of put off by it at first. I didn't really know what to think of it. I was kind of like, oh, that was almost too dark for me. It was, I don't know. I didn't really, following the life of a serial killer is kind of tough to do. But over the years, I would watch it again and kind of grow to appreciate it more. And then I read the book and I was like, oh, wow. They did a really good job of adapting this book into this movie. So I picked American Psycho.
That's the Bret Easton Ellis, isn't that his name?
Yeah.
So how did the book compare? What I liked about the movie, and a lot of people didn't get it. A lot of people, I think I had to drive to Salt Lake because people didn't. Again, when you're living in Utah, like Pulp Fiction, we had to go see up in Salt Lake. They don't play a lot of the stuff down where we are because it's a little more Mormon, I guess you could say. But I did have to drive up to see American Psycho because I heard a lot of great things about it. People, I guess, were expecting a slasher, but the movie plays as a comedy for me. It's to the point where he's not a serial killer. He's like, to me, what the point is, he's imagined. He's so disturbed.
That's the thing at the end, they kind of point out that it was all on his mind. And so that was kind of like, oh, he's crazy.
Yeah. And it's a tip off from the very beginning. When you see like the red drops, you think it's blood, but it's actually like, I think frosting or a glaze or something like that. So again, a very smart movie. Yep. So my next pick, we talked about 10 Things I Hate About You. I could pick that, but since I already picked the Shakespeare adaptation, I'm going to go ahead and pick a Keith Ledger adjacent. We'll talk about A Knight's Tale from 2001. Again, a lot of people don't realize, and it's very, very loosely based on the Canterbury Tales by Chaucer, Geoffrey Chaucer, who has actually a character in the movies who Paul Bettany plays. And so again, Canterbury Tales is just a bunch of different short stories about the medieval times. And so it's based on the part of the story. It's about this guy that gets these characters that get involved in tournaments, like, to win the love of or fantasy, you're getting earn the love of a woman. And so again, very loosely based on the Canterbury Tales, but it does follow that. And again, I think there are even a couple of characters I think I had somewhere in here. I can't remember. Yeah, 2 of the characters in the film, Peter the Pardoner and Simon the Summoner, they're actually characters in the Canterbury Tales. So it's a tip off to you that it is an adaptation of those stories of that book, but it's not necessarily a straightforward adaptation, which is where my list was headed.
Okay.
What did you think of A Knight's Tale?
I wasn't a huge fan of it. I know I like Brian Heggelin, right? Is that his name?
Heggelin, yeah. Uh-huh.
Yeah, and he wrote LA Confidential and did some other things I really liked that he's done. But I didn't really catch on to The Knight's Tale. I don't know what it was about it. I don't know. It didn't do it for me.
I know for a fact that them using like Queen and David Bowie songs, like to kind of make it a purposely anachronistic, to me, that doesn't really play into the final story. It does that, but then it kind of leaves it behind.
Yeah, and they had AC/DC in there too, I think, right?
Yeah, so it's fun, but it doesn't. They could have left that out, and the movie would have. I just think it's a charmer. It shows Heath Ledger as kind of a romantic lead, and it's got some fun parts, and Paul Bettany's good, and so and it's smart. And but again, it's not something that's
I do know when they were pitching it to the studios, they kind of like acted out one of the joust sequences, and Brian got his teeth knocked out.
Oh,
so I do know that story.
Suffering for his art. Yeah.
Anyway, my third pick, I'm going to pick a movie called Bloodwork. It was a Clint Eastwood movie, and it was a book that I read just kind of on a whim. I remember just being bored at work, and I went and grabbed a book, and based on the way the cover looked, I grabbed it and just started reading it. And it kind of pulled me in. I read the entire book in like a week, and then the movie came out because I always thought that'd be a fun movie or a book to adapt for a movie. And it came out, and I was like, "What? They made that into a movie?" I was so shocked. I went and saw it. And I saw it in the theater with a bunch of old people, which surprised me because I was like, how are these people reading this book, or what are they? Why are they here? And
old people, so like 50.
Oh no, they were old. They were like old, and like they were like, yeah,
really interesting.
It surprised me. But Clint Eastwood, and the thing is, it shouldn't have been Clint Eastwood in the main role. I understand, who he is, and he's a name and all that, and I think he's great. the character that's described in the book and the way it translates to the movie, it's not the way they describe it. And so I don't like it when books will describe a character a certain way and then they pick something exact opposite for the movie to play the role. And it's like, that's not what you described in the book. Why are you going against what it says in the book? So I have a hard time with that. So I kind of stopped reading books that became movies because it's like, I don't want to find something that I love, as that I think is great, and I get attached to these characters that I've invented in my mind, which they've told me how it looks. They know what it's supposed to be, and then they go and make a movie and they change it. They change everything that you thought was supposed to be, and so that happened to me with Bloodwork. And so I don't really like the movie very much, but I like the book a whole lot more.
Okay, yeah, that's a blind spot. I do like Clint Eastwood. He's one of my favorite actors / directors, but that's one that I don't think. Didn't he do one called True Crime or something like that? It's kind
True Crime, yeah.
I did see that one, but I don't think Bloodwork I've seen. So yeah, that's a good choice. Funny that it's just old people.
Yeah,
elderly people watch the movie.
No, I only picked it because it was something that it just kind of happened. I didn't really mean for it to happen. I just found a book that I read, and then I realized they made a movie, went and saw the movie, and then I just was like upset that they did not follow the book the way they should have.
Yeah. Well, we can mention like a bunch of movies too that are loosely based on stuff. Field of Dreams obviously doesn't really follow the Shoeless Joe book to a T. Pretty Woman came out in the 90s, is another Pygmalion, My Fair Lady kind of riff. So you can mention that stuff. We talked about the Shakespeare things. So kind of tying in with teen comedies too, I wanted to talk about and texted you about this. Like, we don't have to keep these to 90s because I want to talk about Easy A with Emma Stone. Just talking about movies kind of like Juno and stuff like that, where it's very sharply written to the point where they don't really sound like human beings. They sound like exaggerated versions of human beings, but in a way that you'd be like, I want to sound like them. I want to talk like these people. And it's just a charmer with the dialogue. It's got the parents, Stanley Tucci and Patricia Clarkson, who are just as funny and just as they throw barbs and they're very sarcastic, and their dialogue is just very fun. And again, that Easy A is taken after the Scarlet Letter from Nigel Hawthorne, and they even talk about the Scarlet Letter. So it's not like they shy away from the fact that this is based on that. What did you think of Easy A?
I remember liking it for the most part. I'm not the biggest Emma Stone fan. She is in one movie that I really like, and it's not a very well-known movie, but she, for the most part, I think she's fine. Like, I don't really have anything negative to say, but I'm not like a huge fan of hers, so I don't quite to see everything she does.
Yeah, I think this was maybe her, like Jennifer Garner was big with 13 Going on 30, or we talked about Julia Roberts being big with Pretty Woman. I think Easy A was probably the one where Emma Stone became a somebody for me. Just she's able to carry a movie in a way that is very refreshing, and she's attractive in her own right, and so she's easy on the eyes. So again, very charming movie, Easy A. I wanted to be sure that that got a shout out. So,
all right. Well, I'm going to pick the next movie, I believe. It's my turn, correct?
That is true.
So this is a movie that I saw with my family a long time ago, and we watched it, and we all were just laughing our heads off the entire time from start to finish. And then my dad tried to show it to some of his coworkers, and they just didn't get it. So I wanted to go ahead and revisit this one because it's something that we all really fell in love with when we were younger. And
it's not Henry, Portrait of a Serial Killer, is it?
That's the other one. No, The Gods Must Be Crazy.
Oh, okay.
It's a different kind of odd movie. If you haven't seen it, it's not for everybody, but it's something that my family, we just latched onto, and we all just were laughing our heads off, and I want to watch it again. So we'll do The Gods Must Be Crazy.
It's the Aborigine character that the Coke bottle falls on him from the plane and everything. So okay.
Yeah.
Again, it'd be interesting. I don't know if that one, I know that's been mentioned recently. I don't know if it's because of the age where people are going back and looking at movies and saying, look how inappropriate this is, or look how unwoke this movie is, and it's a terrible movie. And so I'm not sure if that's where I've heard it recently, but it'll be fun at least looking at it from that perspective.
Well, let's not worry about the wokeness of it. Who gives a crap?
Yeah, I don't like that stuff either. Just like we talked about with Clueless, it's just people are just, their radars going for stuff that's purposely going to piss them off, and I don't know why you want to walk into a movie like that. So yeah, that's Gods Must Be Crazy is definitely something I've wanted to show my kids for a while. So
yeah, it should be fun.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thanks for joining us for NostalgiaCast. I'm Jonny Craddock.
And I'm Darren Lundberg.
We'll see you next time.
Bye, guys.